Well, let's focus now on the extreme weather sweeping across parts of Asia. Sri Lanka's president described it as the largest and most challenging natural disaster in his country's history. A typhoon and two cyclones during monsoon season have caused severe flooding and landslides, not just in Sri Lanka, but across Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia and the Philippines. Well, these red dots on the map show where heavy rain is expected. More than 1,100 people have died, but thousands more are missing as rescuers scramble to clear blocked roads to access hard-to-reach areas. Let's get this report then from Neville Lazarus.
It's been days since Cyclone Ditwa tore through Sri Lanka. Its impact and magnitude still unfolding. Floodwaters have submerged towns, villages and homes, damaging infrastructure and making it more difficult for rescue operations. Landslides have ravaged everything in their path, claiming hundreds of lives, while 1 million people have been affected by one of the worst floods in recent times. Their ordeal isn't over yet, as rivers are at critical flood levels and could breach any time. Residents in low-lying areas are being evacuated to safe grounds. Wildlife impacted as well. A state of emergency has been declared and the government has issued an appeal for international aid.
While the cyclone has passed, the impacts haven't. So there's flooding, there's landslides, there's blocked roads, there's isolated communities cut off. The needs are immense and it's right across the spectrum. It's everything from the basics, food and water, to first aid, to access to healthcare, access to markets.
As thousands of hectares of crops have been washed away, this at a time when the country has been reeling from years of economic and political turmoil. Meanwhile, in Indonesia, a similar tragedy unfolds as a rare tropical cyclone Senya has brought catastrophic devastation, mainly to the north and west of the Sumatra Islands. For rescue workers, it's a race against time as hundreds are still missing. The damage caused to roads, infrastructure, power lines and communications has cut off many parts of the island, hampering rescue operations. Cyclone Senya then struck the southern provinces of Thailand, causing flash floods and claiming scores of lives, affecting more than 3 million residents. Cyclones aren't unusual in this part of the world, but this is a deadly combination. 3 cyclones hitting at the same time during the monsoon season. The fear is there could be worse to come. Neville Lazarus, Sky News, India.
The White House has confirmed that a US admiral approved a second strike on a suspected drug boat off Venezuela. The Washington Post earlier reported that the double hit, which it says killed survivors of the first attack, was ordered by the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Well, the White House says Mr. Hegseth authorized the admiral to conduct the strikes on the 2nd of September, and the admiral was within his legal rights to order the second strike. Well, there is unease on both sides of US politics, with Democrats questioning if the double hit would constitute a war crime. The Trump administration has deployed a large fleet off Venezuela, saying it's to combat drug smuggling.
With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated.
To clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
Well, that was the White House press secretary earlier this evening. Donald Trump is meeting his National Security Council in just under an hour's time. So far, he appears to be backing his defense secretary. Well, this is how he responded to reporters overnight.
I don't know anything about it. He said he did not say that, and I believe him 100%.
You don't know if there was
You're talking about the 2 men?
The second strike to kill the 2 men.
No, he said he didn't do it. He said he never said
Would you be okay with that if he did?
He said he didn't do it, so I don't have to make that decision. I don't know that happened. And Pete said he did not want them. He didn't even know what people were talking about. So we'll look into it. But no, I wouldn't have wanted that, not a second strike. The first strike was very lethal, it was fine, and if there were two people around, but Pete said that didn't happen.
Does that make you...
I have great confidence in it.
Donald Trump. Well, let's head to our US correspondent, David Blevins. So what did we learn today then, David, about this incident and what is likely to be discussed at this national security meeting?
Well, the president is due to meet his national security team within the next hour. That is Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and General Dan Kane, who is chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Caroline Levitt, the White House press secretary, says there are a number of options on the table for them. She wouldn't elaborate beyond that. But of course, there's been a lot of speculation, Anna, since President Trump posted during the Thanksgiving weekend that he had closed the airspace above and around Venezuela. Since then, of course, on his way back from Florida on Air Force One, he's confirmed that he has spoken to Venezuela's President, Nicolas Maduro. When asked about that call, he initially said, "I don't want to comment," and then immediately said the answer to the question is yes. He said the conversation hadn't gone well and hadn't gone badly, but there is lots of speculation that he has given Maduro an ultimatum to step down or to face airstrikes in the coming days. It's certainly a very volatile situation, and not least because of the disquiet that's been fueled by reports the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth ordered this follow-up strike on a boat that already had been incapacitated and while there were survivors in the water.
Yes, it's our understanding that President Maduro is giving a speech right now in Caracas amid, I think it was the Miami Herald's reporting, wasn't it, that he'd been given an ultimatum, guaranteed safe passage out of Caracas if he chose to leave. But in terms of this strike, the accusation of this double tap, you know, what is reaction now from the Republican ranks to all of this?
Yes, and I think it's worth stressing that, of course, many will argue that this is ultimately about regime change. That is President Trump's goal in relation to all of this. But the issue in relation to this alleged follow-up strike order has dominated the press briefing at the White House today. Caroline Levitt was asked about it no fewer than 10 times. Now, you and I know she's normally very self-assured, confidently speaking off the cuff. But I noted today that she kept answering with a pre-prepared statement. For example, when someone asked her how survivors in the water posed any threat to the United States, she just returned to this pre-prepared answer. She was also asked why, if President Trump is determined to stop drug trafficking into the United States, did he pardon the former president of Honduras, who had been convicted by the previous administration of drug trafficking. She said it was because the former president had been set up by the Biden administration. But the fact that the Trump administration is pardoning a man who was convicted of drug trafficking while it is bombing others it alleges are drug trafficking is certainly a conflicting signal.
David, with that update, thank you very much indeed. And obviously more coverage a bit later when that national security meeting gets underway. Well, let's bring in now Brian Finucane, who is a former US State Department lawyer who specialises in the laws of armed conflict at International Crisis Group. Welcome to you. You and I have spoken before. I know you've got very strong views about what's happening there off the coast of Venezuela. But what about today, what we learned? Pete Hegseth authorised an admiral to conduct this strike, and it was the admiral who chose to have a second hit and was within his legal rights to do so. Do you agree that it was legal to carry out that second strike?
So we have somewhat different versions of events, but looking at the facts as presented or the reporting from the Washington Post in recent days, the alleged directive from the Secretary of Defense that there should be no survivors from the strikes, that or to attack the shipwrecked, that would be unlawful even under the administration's own legal theory for conducting these strikes in the Caribbean and Pacific, the theory that there is somehow an armed conflict. And that is why it's so remarkable that even if you accept what in my view is a bogus legal theory, even if you accept that, these strikes would be unlawful and potentially even a war crime.
So is a second strike, or a double tap as it's sometimes known, always illegal?
No, and it's going to really depend on the actual facts. What was the order given? Who gave it? Okay, this is a subject that the defense committees in the House and the U.S. Senate needed to dig into. They need to have hearings, conduct investigations, actually get to the bottom of what was directed here. But more fundamentally, I think we should take a step back and recognize that the predicate for these strikes, the notion that there's an armed conflict, and that this is somehow governed by the law of armed conflict, is simply not supported by the facts, okay? And so outside of armed conflict, premeditated killing is generally considered to be murder.
Well, the Trump administration seems to suggest that Congress has deemed this action legal. And if you forgive my oversimplification on this, they're effectively using post-9/11 national security laws that allowed America to go after al-Qaeda operatives. So is that what is happening here? And there's a deliberate choice of, calling them narco-terrorists, and that's why they feel they can use that legislation.
So yes, you're absolutely right. There has been an attempt to label these people as narco-terrorists, to frame the strikes in the Caribbean as simply the next iteration of the U.S. war on terror. But it's actually completely different because there is not, in fact, a war authorization as there was after 9/11. The U.S. has not suffered an armed attack as on 9/11, and the U.S. is not engaged in actual armed conflict with organized armed groups. These entities, whoever it is the U.S. is bombing in the Caribbean and the Pacific, they are not like al-Qaeda, not like ISIS, not like the Taliban. They're not organized armed groups with military hierarchies capable of engaging in combat operations.
So how much do you think this is about regime change? The Miami Herald, you probably heard us talking about earlier, is reporting that Trump has given Maduro a deadline to leave and has promised safe passage out of Caracas, guaranteed that if he chooses to go. Is that the ultimate aim here? And if so, why?
Well, that is certainly the objective of the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who is understood to be driving U.S. Venezuela policy and was responsible for the buildup in the Caribbean. And that is one function that these strikes serve, is saber rattling, intimidation, coercion tactics towards Maduro to get him to step down or embolden those around him to topple him. It's not clear, however, whether the U.S. president is completely on board with that agenda. And the U.S. president may be open to further negotiations, seeking additional concessions from Maduro. And the actions of recent days may be designed to put additional pressure on Maduro to make those concessions. I believe the reporting that the president has not yet authorized military action against Venezuela, I find that credible. And so the question remains whether the Secretary of State will be able to convince the president to launch a regime change military intervention in Venezuela.
We've seen certain Democrats, haven't we, suggesting to armed units operating in this theatre, if I can use that word, to stand down effectively, to not fight. What is the feeling amongst Democrats on this? But more importantly, perhaps, the mood now amongst Republicans?
I would characterize the video message from a few days ago somewhat differently and say that it was simply a restatement of the law, which is that lawful orders should be followed, but not unlawful ones, or in this case, clearly unlawful ones. I think there's growing concern on Capitol Hill, particularly as a result of these revelations, but there's already dissatisfaction amongst both Democrats and Republicans with the legal justifications they're getting from the administration and the factual information they're getting from the administration, both about the strikes at sea, but also for the potential for military action against Venezuela itself, which Congress has not authorized, of course.
So take us inside that National Security Council meeting, taking place in half an hour or so's time in the White House. Options are on the table, no specification from Caroline Leavitt. What might they be discussing? And in your view, is Pete Hegseth safe in his job?
Well, I won't comment on the security of Mr. Hegseth's job at the moment. What I will say is that the likely military options are to include airstrikes potentially on narcotic-related facilities, but also potentially against the Venezuelan government itself. The Trump administration has labeled this supposed Cartel de los Soles, a non-existent cartel, by the way, but this entity as a terrorist organization, and it is allegedly comprised of senior Venezuelan military officers and headed by Nicolas Maduro himself. And so those could also be targets of any U.S. military intervention. And of course, by labeling this supposed cartel as a terrorist organization, the administration is hoping to lay the political and rhetorical groundwork for military action.
Well, very good to talk to you again. We'll certainly keep an eye on that meeting. Brian Finucane, former State Department lawyer there. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, this is The World Next Up. Tulip Siddiq gives her verdict on a Bangladesh court that has ordered she be jailed for corruption.
we are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
The Labour MP Tulip Siddiq today declared she won't be distracted by the dirty politics of Bangladesh after a court there sentenced her to 2 years in prison for corruption. She and her aunt Sheikh Hasina, who was ousted as Bangladesh's Prime Minister, were both sentenced in absentia. Our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch reports now from Dhaka.
In Dhaka, security was tight and prosecutors confident. Inside, a packed court was about to decide a Labour MP's fate in her absence.
They will act in good conscience.
Tulip Siddiq was meant to fight corruption as a minister in the UK. Here in Bangladesh, she was found guilty of it, sentenced to 2 years in prison. A judge ruling that she tried to influence her powerful aunt, the former leader of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, to secure this land for her family. The MP who stepped down from her Treasury role earlier this year branded it a kangaroo court.
I feel like I'm in some sort of Kafkaesque nightmare where I'm carrying on doing my day job, but on the other hand, I'm apparently being convicted in Bangladesh, and the only reason I know I'm being convicted is because I read it in the newspapers. So this is trial by media, which is deeply unfair.
But prosecutors said 2 witnesses said she'd sent messages to her aunt to lean on her. Where is the physical evidence of communications between Tulip Siddiq and Sheikh Hasina? How can you rely on these witnesses? How do you know they're not just making it up, that they're not politically motivated?
We presented to the court. We got statements from 2 witnesses, and that is what we showed the court.
Tulip Siddiq wasn't present. She didn't have a lawyer. No physical evidence has been presented. Do you think it's regrettable, that? And do you worry that people are concerned about due process in this case?
Of the open court,
The trial happened in open court. There were enough witnesses. Political motivation hasn't played a role in any way, and no pressure was placed on our justice system. It's been a very fair trial.
It's unlikely Tulip Siddiq will serve any of her sentence, but there appears to be a target on her back and on many others close to her ousted aunt. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Well, coming up on The World, more than 30 years after Cool Runnings, we'll meet the Jamaican bobsleigh team who did bring home the gold.
There's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Oh my goodness. Whoa, oh my goodness.
Turn off the camera. Turn around and go away.
Okay, but
listen, I told you 3.
If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Big Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Welcome back. Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, arrives in Moscow tomorrow. The Russian president has been meeting his forces as his military claims to have captured the frontline Ukrainian towns of Pokrovsk and Vovchansk. Well, a statement by the Kremlin says Putin visited one of the command posts of the joint grouping of forces on Sunday. It says the chief of the general staff reported to Vladimir Putin on the liberation of cities in Donetsk and Kharkiv, as well as on operations in other areas in the region. Ukrainian officials have made no acknowledgement that either place has fallen into Russian hands. We'll be following those talks, of course, throughout the week. Now, the fictional Jamaican team did not manage it in the film Cool Runnings, but the real-life bobsleigh team have made history by winning their first ever gold medal at an international bobsleigh competition. The team of four, led by Shane Pitter, beat Canada at the International Bobsleigh and Skeleton Federation's North American Cup in Whistler, British Columbia. Jamaica's bobsleigh team made its Winter Olympics debut back in 1988 in Calgary, which inspired the 1993 film.
We might actually see the Jamaicans win an Olympic medal. So this is it. We could see history in the making.
Feel the rhythm. Feel the rhyme. Get on up. It's bobsled time. Cool
Yes, going to have to watch that again. Well, I'm pleased to say Shane Pitter and teammate Joel Fearon join me now. Shane and Joel most recently also won gold in Utah in the two-man bobsleigh competition. And quite frankly, I'm losing track of how many you're winning. Didn't you also win today? Shane, I think you're in both the two-man and the four-man, aren't you? What is going on?
Yeah, I also won today. Yesterday gold, today gold.
Amazing. Who did you beat?
Canada, Korea, Trinidad and Tobago, Brazil, Croatia, Japan, Thailand, and some other country.
Yes, and I mean, let's face it, beating Canada in those northerly climes, and yours a little more tropical. I mean, Joel, to ask a daft question, where do you go to get your snow and ice to train on?
We travel quite a lot. We spend a lot of time in Lake Placid. We spend a lot of time in North America as a whole. And you know what? The boys are doing fantastically. I think they've climatized really well. You know, they're not as cold as they was a couple of weeks ago. So they're doing a fantastic job. And Shane here is doing a superb job so far driving.
Yeah, you have to wear pretty tight kit. I was just wondering if you smuggle some thermals in, actually, to be fair. But it's all about qualification, is it, for the Winter Olympics in Italy next year? You must be getting excited for your prospects now.
I think so far we've done really, really well. The point tally is, you know, far beyond what we thought at this point. And you know what? We're getting stronger and stronger with each race. So, you know, give us 2 more races and I think we'd have it in the bag. I'm really confident.
Yes, and Shane, I think you are in, as I said, both the 2-man and the 4-man. We had the pictures of the 4, I think. And just that first bit, when you start sprinting, you know, how critical is the speed at the start? Because Jamaica's thrown out, you know, a few famous runners in the past. Can't quite think of their names. But, you know, is that really for you where you get your power from?
Yeah. From Jamaica. You know, it's in the blood. So we're going to be fast at the start.
Yeah. So tell us, you know, whether it's scary. I think you had a fall, didn't you? Was it yesterday?
We had a crash out of the finish corner, and it didn't stop us from winning. So me and Joel are okay, and we end up get the gold medal.
So you have to be upright over the line, presumably.
Not really. No. We just need to be fast. It doesn't matter how we get there.
Amazing. So did you fall before the line? You still managed to beat the time of the Canadians?
Right on the line, the sled tipped over.
Amazing. So, Joel, I'm guessing you're too young to remember Cool Runnings or even, you know, the bobsleigh team back in '88. Have you seen that movie? And has that helped inspire what you do now?
Me? Oh, I've seen that movie loads of times. My kids have seen it. That's how I told my wife. I said, babe, watch this movie. This is what I'm going to be doing. We've seen that movie. And I can't believe that I am part of that movement, watching this when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, watching it for the first time. You know, this is still unbelievable to me.
And Shane, do you feel like you're making history here? And when you got that first gold medal, I mean, how did you celebrate?
I went in the shower and I was like, woo! And I almost didn't believe I got the gold medal, but when I just keep looking at the timesheet and I saw my name at first, I was like, yeah, I won.
Amazing. And Joel, same to you. I mean, you know, you see the time in lights. In fact, I've got it here somewhere, the time that you got. And is it a pinch me moment? Is that how you felt about it?
No, you know what? I've been watching these guys training over the last couple of months and I've seen them preparing. I know Shane really well. And it actually wasn't a surprise to me. I was glad when they got it out of their system. But, you know, I think we're looking at the greatest Jamaican bobsleigh team in history. So I think you guys need to watch this space.
Well, indeed so. And for the Olympics then, is 4-man and 2-man 2 separate competitions? Can you both get to go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And have you learnt any Italian yet in preparation?
No. We're just concentrating on the bobsleigh for now. We'll get to the Italian later.
Yes, absolutely. So what's the ambition now for either the 4 or the 2? Why do you shout for the 2 as you both are the 2?
I think the ambition's always been to win. Our team's getting stronger with each race. We've got some tremendous athletes on the 4-man and for the 2-man. So, you know, we're turning up to win and nothing else.
Yeah, and the same for you, Shane. You know, clearly you've got your work cut out being in both, haven't you? Both of those, the 2-man and the 4-man. You know, how are you training? How are you keeping fit? You know, making sure you don't get injured. What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that everything I do, I be mindful that, like, the simplest thing nowadays you can get injured for. So I'm just trying to be on the safe side, being focused,
and also managing my time.
And same for you, Joel. I mean, you presumably do a lot of sprint training, don't you? Weight training, power training, finding your snow and ice elsewhere, obviously. How are you keeping focused?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. You know, I've been doing a lot mentoring the team because I've been in bobsleigh for a long time and coaching the team, so they're keeping me on my toes. And just doing what we can. Like, it's a tough sport. There's a lot of traveling. There's a lot of things to move. So we really are working together to make this sort of the best case scenario. But we are doing a fantastic job, as you can see.
You genuinely are. And I'm going to seek out Cool Runnings. I'm going to re-watch, and I urge everyone else to as well. But Joel Fearon, brakeman of the two-man Jamaican bobsled team, and Shane Pitter, pilot of the two-man Jamaica bobsled team, also in the four-man as well. Huge congratulations to both of you. We really appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing stuff there. Well, before we go, we wanted to show you some pictures from Lebanon, where Pope Leo has delivered a message of peace and religious coexistence. He prayed at the tomb of St. Shabal Makhlouf, who's revered by both Christians and Muslims. He is visiting at a tenuous time for Lebanon as Israel continues to target Hezbollah there with airstrikes and the country struggles to emerge from years of political and economic crises. We will, of course, continue to follow that visit. Well, that's it from the World Team. Yalda is back tomorrow. I'm back with Sky News at 10 in just a moment.